Hello everyone and welcome to this week's video tutorial. I had done a poll on which opening system that people liked, and the majority preferred to know more about the left Riverbank horse variation of the screen horse defense. So this will be the first of a series of videos introducing this major opening system, which is very volatile and one of the most exciting opening systems in the central cannon versus screen horse defense opening system. So without further ado, let us begin. I would like to thank Grandmaster Zhang and Master Wenqing for their permission to use their material from their book to showcase this example. Okay, central cannon, screen horse defense. There can be a slight change in the order of the moves. Red or black can play p7 plus 1 slightly earlier, as long as they are logical. Now, one of the hallmarks of this opening system is that red would push his chariot across the river to threaten this horse. Now, this would be a pawn rank chariot, and it will compress the space that black's left chariot and cannon would have. And the next hallmark of this variation would be black moving his left horse to the riverbank, hence its name, left river horse bank variation, or 左马盘河 in Xiangqi. Now the full name for this opening system is very long. It will be central cannon with 7-pawn advancement and pawn rank chariot versus screen horse defense with left riverbank horse variation, or sometimes 7th pawn advancement with riverbank horse variation. Now, one of the key points about this opening system is that black counters very aggressively very early in the game. By pushing h7 plus 6, black will be prepared to play p7 plus 1 to try to dislodge this chariot. Now, the upside is this will be a very aggressive attack, and red would have to waste another 1 or 2 moves to move this chariot to wherever he desires. Now the downside for black would be that because the horse had moved, this chariot would be left hanging. There will be no material to it will not be protected by the horse anymore. And because the chariot was here, this chariot would now compress or pin the left chariot and cannon to the same file. Now the entire opening system would revolve around this issue of black's horse targeting the chariot, and also this black's left cannon and chariot. So generally speaking, if red were able to keep the cannon and chariot pin while negating the effects of this horse and pawn, red would have the advantage. And conversely, if black were able to get this chariot and cannon into action and amplify the power of this horse and even a pawn, black would have a successful opening. Now at this point, it is usual for red to play h8 plus 7. Now this would prevent the horse from crossing the river. And because of this move, this black horse would not have would be suddenly limited in the number of intersections where it can develop further. And at this point, it would be advisable for black to play e3 plus 5. Now this is considered to be one of the Tabia or opening moves, and indeed this position, as shown in the tutorial earlier on, will be the topic of discussion for this whole series. Towards the end of this series, black will play e7 plus 5, but that will be left for a later video. Now e3 plus 5 would consolidate the central file and allow the black chariot to be developed as a kingside chariot if need be later on. So this is also a very reasonable and good sound move. Now at this point in time, there are many ways for red to attack. In the first board, we shall discuss p5 plus 1. whereby red would attack from the central file. Now this would lead to a very complicated and volatile situation. Now p5 plus 1 is not so commonly seen now, but it must be discussed as the first topic because it will be a continuation of red's attack along the central file. Now other commonly used attacks would be playing h8 plus 1 for the high chariot, for the high cannon variation. This is another major topic or major sub-variation in this opening system. Another one would be playing the 5-9 cannons and also the left rank chariot. Now all these are four major ways that red can attack in this position, and all of them will lead to very complicated positions which will be discussed over in the course of the next few weeks. There will be also other less commonly seen variations like r2 equals to 4 and even the left elephant variation as mentioned earlier. But for today's board, we will be discussing on p5 plus 1. Now, as mentioned earlier, p5 plus 1 would be an attack on red central file. Now, the issue now at this point would be, since red was intent on attacking the central file, could black get any compensation by attacking the chariot with p7 plus 1? Now, at this point, only by the 7th ply, both colors will start attacking each other. So this is quite a powerful aggressive counter by black, and that is why it is a favorite of many Xiangqi players. And at this point in time, there are two major variations that were discussed in the book. The first would be r2 equals to 4. The second would be r2 minus 1. So in the first variation, r2 equals to 4 would be red's way of countering this countering black's pawn advancement. Now at this point in time, the issue on the board will be, would black want to trade material, trade his horse to advance his pawn, or would he choose to move his horse to safety? So let us see. Now capturing this pawn will maintain the intensity on the center of the board. Now black will be prepared to trade his horse for the cannon if need be. Now another possible variation would be to play p7 plus 1. This variation was not discussed. Black would capture and trade material. Now this current situation would transposition back to variation B as will be seen later on. So h6 plus 7 was discussed, and red kept going, attacking the central file. At this point, black would move his advisor to consolidate his defense along the central file. Now this is a key move to make. Black cannot and should not play p5 plus 1. If he played p5 plus 1, the red horse would now be developed from the central file and place black in a dilemma. Let's say if black attack with p7 equals to 6, which is advocated, this move would threaten, black would threaten to play p5 plus 1 to link the pawns together, and he will sacrifice the pawn at this point in time. Now if he played p5 plus 1 to try to gain material, red would simply capture the horse, and as can be seen, this pawn will be exterminated, and up to this point, by the 12th ply, black could have used up 4 moves to move this pawn across the river and then this pawn across the river too. And if this pawn were captured, it would mean that black would have lost 4 moves in terms of initiative. So that is why red would have the advantage at this point in time. That's why p5 plus 1 is not advocated, but instead p7 equals to 6. Red will capture the pawn, deliver a check. Red will capture the black pawn. Black would try to develop his chariot to gain some momentum, but Red will also develop his left chariot, and in this situation, Red would have the advantage because of the central cannon over here. And although Black can attack this flank, the presence of the rank chariot will offer some defense if need be. So generally speaking, Red would have the significant advantage. That is why capturing the black pawn would not be a good idea, and it would be better for Black to consolidate his defense on the central file. H3 plus 5 as a cannon pin, which Red would not bother about. He would continue to attacking. Now, one thing about attacking from the central file, especially with the central link horses, is that Red must be aggressive. Any slight show of regret or any indecisive move would result in great losses. Black tries to to pin this pawn and chariot to the on his pawn rank. Now this is a commonly used tactic in similar situations, and at this point in time, Red would sacrifice a pawn as a very aggressive counter. Now this would be a good move, attempting to gain material, because if Black capture it, Red will continue to push his pawn forward to capture the elephant, so it will be a trade of this elephant for Black's elephant, while the red chariot will capture the black cannon. But Black would have an equally brilliant counter waiting in hand. Now it would be a bad idea at this point. For Red to play p5 equals to 6, because Red would capture the horse, forcing the horse to retreat, and at this point in time, Black would immediately retreat his horse, forking the red pawn and chariot at this point, and it would be a very depressing position for Red. Now Red would be placed in a huge dilemma, and as mentioned earlier, the chariot would usually be moved, but the pawn would be captured, and the efforts of this pawn, after making so many moves, would now be reduced to naught. So that is why p5 equals to 6 is not advised, but Red played very brilliantly with p7 plus 1. Now Black will continue to capture the horse, trade on material, and Black would counter with h7 minus 5. This would be a trade of material as Black counter sacrifice material. A very nice attack, pinning the cannon and horse to the central file. So this would be in effect a trade of material. Now one might wonder, Black could retreat his chariot to attack the cannon, which will have no place to go. However, Black would still be in a favorable position. I ran this position through my computer analysis, and it was suggested that this would be an even situation, because if Red played r4 minus 3, Black could continue with c3 minus 3, and if the cannon were captured, Black would apply a pin to the red chariot and thus gain a winning position. So this cannon is actually protected, and Black could take his time to develop his chariot, etc. for attack. So Black would have seized the initiative at this point. So we shall retreat a little bit, retrace our back steps a little bit. Now variation A was r2 equals to 4. Now in variation B, which is a slightly improvised move, Red would retreat his chariot one intersection to threaten the horse, and also continue to apply the pin on Black's cannon and chariot. At this point in time, black would usually choose to play a direct approach with p7 plus 1. Now, h6 minus 7 to try to dislodge the chariot in this manner is a commonly used tactic, but it will not be a good idea at this point in time because red would simply retreat his chariot to protect his pawn rank, preparing to capture the pawn to go. So let's say if black tried to keep his pawn alive, red will still force a trade of material, and if the pawn captures it, the horse will be developed and red would have a powerful offensive going on. So that is why p7 plus 1 would be the more direct and simple no-nonsense approach to the game. And after trading material, red will continue to apply a pin to these two pieces. Now this is a very steadfast play and is very generally recommended. It would not be a good idea at this point in time for red to try to be aggressive with p5 plus 1 because black would, first of all, black would free himself of the pin, attack the elephant, and this will force the elephant away. Black will now, as mentioned earlier, black will now attack with his chariot cannon, and let's say red continue to attack the central file. Black will play a4 plus 5, preparing to develop the chariot. So this would be a very complicated situation whereby both colors would have their scruples. So p5 plus 1 would lead to a rather complicated and very intense situation. Now, in the match, r4 equals to 2, in the book, r4 equals to 2 was recommended, whereby red would still keep his pin on. Now, the pawn would now create havoc. Red would advance his cannon, threatening to capture the pawn in this manner. Of course, black would have none of it, and after a long march, the black pawn will now have reached the elephant's eye, where it will become a major threat. Now, the current issue, the most pressing or immediate issue that red would have to deal with would be the issue of this pawn over here. So one way is to play r9 plus 1 to threaten it, but black would immediately trade this pawn for an advisor, and black would play ra plus 1 as a very versatile move, preparing to deliver a check and free himself of the pin. Now red will have none of it, or no, not even bother, but play h8 equals to 3, r9 equals to 3, sorry. Now at this point in time, it would be better for black to continue to consolidate his central file. It would be a bad idea to play r8 equals to 6 to deliver a check, because the issue of the cannon would have to be resolved, and the best place for this cannon to move would be the 9th file, as all the other files were already occupied either by the two red chariots, or if black played c8 equals to 6, he would actually cause his chariot to become closed. So that is why h8 plus c8 plus equals to 9 was advocated in the book. But in the process of doing so, red will counter tit for tat, and with this very aggressive counter, he will capture an elephant to compensate for the loss of his pawn. So black loses the elephant, and red would have an attack going on. Now there will be many other complicated situations. For example, red could play r2 plus 2, etc. to add pressure. So a4 plus 5 is advocated. The king would retreat to safety. Black would link his chariot, so protect this chariot in this manner. r3 equals to 6 to force the gain of material. Black could move the cannon away, such that the chariots will now, black will offer trade of chariots. Now, red cannot jump the gun and capture the cannon, or black would counter capture this chariot with a discovered check. And at this time, we can see that red would now have developed his left horse also. Red will be attacking, but he will lack one advisor. So both colors would have their advantages and disadvantages in this situation. So a short recap: Riverbank horse variation, and in this board we discussed p5 plus 1 as red's attack. This will be discussion of whether red's attack on the central file would be feasible. p7 plus 1 to dislodge the chariot. And in variation A, r2 equals to 4 will lead to this position, whereby although black would all hope would seem to be lost for this black cannon, but black could play c3 minus 3. In variation B, r2 minus 1 is played to threaten the horse, to counter threaten the horse and also apply pressure. And this will lead to a situation whereby red will lack one advisor, but he will be attacking. So, as mentioned earlier, the black pawn is a very menacing part of this attack. So I hope you've enjoyed this short video. If you like the work that I've been doing, please subscribe to my channel and I will continue making more videos to the best of my abilities. Thank you.